but most of the time the risks are really on you.
Welcome to Just Men, a life changing program that resonates hope as well as encouragement. The program that gives you information and inspiration for the glory of God. I'm your host, Jeff Tate, and thank you for joining Just Men. On today's program, we have a very special guest. This is his first time being on Just Men. Please welcome Bryan, aka Law. Brother Bryan, welcome to Just Men.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for having me.
Man, it is a pleasure. And let me say on the onset, you add value to Just Men, and we're grateful and honored to hear your story and kind of peel the pages of your life and hear a little bit more about you, man. So
All right,
I tell
thank
you,
you.
let's dive into it. Let's dive into it. So who is Bryan, aka Law?
Well, I'm a man of many faces, I guess you could say. We could take it all the way back to when I was growing up. You know, my father, he's a pastor. He's actually the pastor of Church of the Messiah, Pastor Bryan Williams Sr. And so I've always been around men that were, you know, moving in the right direction, always looking to impact their community, always looking to give back, not only my father, but my grandfather as well. He was also a pastor in Pontiac in Michigan. So just having them as examples and just going through life, you know, I find their characteristics, or actually my personality, begin to shine through. And even with just going through everyday life on the job, and I am also into motorcycles. So even when I'm doing motorcycle things and in a club, um, my tendencies or my upbringing always would flare out. And so it's almost like when I think back, the only story I can really think that I can relate it to is the story of David in the Bible when he was in Ziklag. I believe that's where it is. And I joined a motorcycle club, and it was one of the best things for me. My mother, she passed away when I was about 19, and from that point on, I just I don't want to say I resented God, but I did have some issues that I needed to deal with. So I found myself, after she passed, just getting real deep into cars and getting into street racing and just going down. It wasn't necessarily a dark path, but it just was like I was trying to be destructive, high speeds, just getting into dangerous little situations. And I eventually got into motorcycles. My father, he actually bought a motorcycle. I would never in a million years thought I'd be riding a motorcycle. And he got into it, and he ended up getting one after my mom passed. And because I used to work on cars, used to do custom work and stuff like that, he sent me to the store one day to pick up some lights for to work on his bike. And I walked into the shop, and from that moment on, I was hooked, just like that. And just got into riding. And being a part of the motorcycle community has taught me more than I ever imagined. And it taught me more about myself, how to deal with other people, how to respect other people, and also taught me just how I deal with myself, how I view myself. And I mean, there's just so many different things that we could talk about. So it's wherever you want to go, I'm down with going.
Yeah, wow, that's good. Now, you've laid a great foundation when we talk about developing the man. You use different avenues. One, obviously, seeing what was modeled before you through your grandfather and through
Yeah,
your father, and then also breaking away from that tradition to what you would call a club
yeah,
and the biking club, and how they also cultivate you as well. So I'm
yeah.
going to peel back the pages a
Okay,
little bit
okay.
and talk a little bit about in terms of how do we create distractions in our lives to feel void. And you chose, obviously, at one point, it was a life of self-destruction
Yeah.
because of distraction. Talk a little bit about that point in your life, and then we will talk a little bit about the awakening, how you began to make that shift, and how you had another desire that also kept you from that dark path
Yeah.
and brought you into a path of light. Talk a little bit about that
Well,
process.
the whole distracting thing is real. I can tell you that. And a lot of times when I was in it, you didn't recognize it. That was just life. You don't really recognize it when it's happening. And I can think of many times where where I would be in situations because when you first think of a motorcycle club, a lot of people have they already have these preconceived notions about what they do, what's going on, who they do, and things like that.
Right.
And it comes with a kind of a negative connotation. And when you first get into it, if you're not careful, it goes to your head. And for me, it was a distraction. The attention I was getting, being able to travel all over the country riding, the attention just you change and you treat people differently. Now you now have an attitude. You now have this persona you got to live up to.
Mm.
And doing that for a good amount of years and hanging out with people that you call your quote unquote brother or you quote unquote your friend or your buddy. And some actually do look out for you. A lot of them do. But there are some that will ride the way right on down to, to the places you have no business being in. So the distracting part of it, it's just crazy, man, because when I look back now, I've been riding for about 10 years.
Mm.
So maybe more than that now, honestly, if I think about it. It might be more than that. But now I'm at a place to where I can identify just different things. There's a lot of people who get into different things. They may join an organization, they may join um, a club or something like that. They may get in it to distract themselves of reality. And it took me a while to get there. It took me a while to reach a place to say, hey, I've now identified why I did or why I do what I do. And I'm at a place now to where I can say, hey, I need to try and help or bring a positive impact to my environment. Because I identified that most people that do join, and it's not just necessarily a club, I don't want to say it's a motorcycle thing, it could be anything. Most people that do join, they're hurt by something, or they're trying to distract themselves, like you said. Whether it could be someone that's dealing with an abusive relationship. So then they find a way, if I'm not at work, I'm going to hang out with my club. You know? They're trying to escape. They're trying to escape something they don't want to face.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So recognizing that and just the way that I was brought up, being in the environment, you learn that some of the people there have some of the most beautiful minds that you've ever seen in your life. You never expected. And it's like, there's so much potential in this room. And especially with the motorcycle clubs, because that's one place where you can consistently get a large group of black men. Every week, week in, week out, there's a calendar we know. We know where everything's going to be. And you'll catch them there every time consistently.
Mm.
So now I'm looking at it from a place of, I used to look at it from, this is where I'm going to go. You know, I'm quote unquote the man, and I'm showing up, and we're riding, and we're cool. Now I'm looking at it as, I'm older now. My job is to try to give something back, something better than just what everybody's used to. How can I leave this thing, leave it in a place or a status that's better than when I first came? So that's where I'm at now.
Mm.
That I don't have to hide or I don't have to pretend. I can just be myself. Those things that my father and my grandfather and my mom, all those things that they instilled in me, it was flaring out anyway. It was coming out anyway. They'd be like, oh, you're different. You're not.
Yeah.
So I'm like, yeah, I am different. But I'm here for a reason. I'm here to bring everybody together and see and try to promote unity. Because there's division. You could look at the country now. You know, just the vision that goes on with it, you know, from the top down. Why can't there be something that pushes everybody to come together, to celebrate life while we're still here?
Wow,
So,
that's beautiful. You know, some of the things that I think about, I use athleticism to
hmm
hide and to break away from what I call the gap in my life, the void and displacement and
yeah.
the what was expected of you living in the community. And one of the things that I know about labeling, one of my things of labeling is CIA, character, integrity, and attitude. And so the question that I'm always asking men is what label or what trademark do you leave on your profession, that you leave on your family, or you leave on your kids, or you leave on your community? in alignment with that CIA, when does your character comes out? When does integrity comes out? When does the attitude come out, right? In terms of that. And so I would ask the same question to you in relations to your club and to your men coming together, and you probably have maybe even women in the club as well. But where do you see you putting your stamp, your legacy, your mark on what you do? What would that be? If I would ask you, what mark are you leaving on this? What would you
Well,
say?
right now, I've just started. I want to say, I've been working on this for about 2 or 3 years, but I finally just got brave enough to say, hey, I've got to make something happen.
Mm.
So I started a YouTube channel. I've also started a podcast. It's called Red Line Legends. And basically, I feel like after 10 years, when I first was in it, when I first joined, I was a young pup. So I really don't have much to say because I'm trying to learn. And even 10 years for bikers is still kind of young. However, I'm at a place to where I recognize that we need to come together. I recognize that there's a lot of older gentlemen that can reach back and teach the younger guys and make it better for the younger guys coming through. That we all had a point to where we all fell in love with riding motorcycles. That's what could unify us, and we can just if we can just start there, we can move forward and build something so much greater. So my legacy, if something was to happen to me, what I would want to leave behind would be the fact that I was bringing everybody together, changing things and making people, let's say if you were there and it was somebody else and you didn't know this person and you saw them every week, but you never really had a conversation with them. Redline Legends, let's say if I was interviewing you and we would just talk about how you first got into riding motorcycles and what was it for you? What was your favorite time period? And what were the high times like? What were the low times like? And you would share that. So the next time you're out and our friend here sees it, he's like, now you guys can spark up a conversation. And that's one person it's not like, I'm only interviewing certain people. No, this is for everybody because we all ride. So
Wow, that's
that's
beautiful.
that's what I'm working on.
Yeah. Talk to me about the acronym LAW and what does that mean in terms of just your program?
Law is an acronym. Of course, in a motorcycle club, you have, I'm going to say nicknames, but you have a name. And when you first, of course, when you're trying to join, you have to earn a name. Long story short, a law is an acronym. I actually enjoy, I'm a fan of the 48 Laws of Power. And so every now and then, just some certain things that I do is based all out of that book. I just enjoy it. It's also the acronym, like I said, and also could mean the legendary Ace Williams, or it could also mean the legacy of Ace Williams. And I really don't tell too many people that. They just say, what's law? I'm just like, you'll get it sooner or later.
Yeah.
You'll get it sooner or later.
Wow, that's good. It's so much power in a name, and many times I always think about. For me, I had a road to Damascus. I probably would have been the Saul who ran havoc on the church.
Really?
And I would have been the Saul that, oh man, I mean, but a transformation. And that's why I understand the power of transformation and the name. And so when you start to think about how God changes us and he changes our name, and then when you hear that name, a name that represent royalty or represent power or represent overcomer, right? You begin to line up with that. And so many times people are called by another name that actually condemns their spirit. But imagine being called, like you said, we don't tell people about our certain names, but imagine called a name that elevates the inner man inside of you. So that anytime you don't act like that name, it rise up, it checks you, right? It doesn't condemn you, but it convicts you.
Right.
And it says, wait a minute, son, you're not operating according to your name. You're not doing according to your name. And so that's why I ask so many questions about, your nickname or any other name that you carry, what that means. It has to have meaning. And I like what you said. It's a meaning that raises the consciousness to a higher level. And when you begin to operate in that, and it brings joy. Just imagine when someone calls you out of your name, what does it do? It destroys the
Yeah.
inner man. It destroys the joy. Someone calls you a name that you think is derogatory. It breaks the human spirit. And so that's why I know the power of the name when you speak that.
Yeah.
Also, when you talk about your show, and I want you to dive a little bit on this podcast because you said something that's really dear to me about connecting people and bridging gaps
Yeah.
and how you interview them and find out what their interests are. One of the questions I would ask if I was interviewing you,
Okay.
and I would say, "Hey, I'm going to be a part of what you're doing, but tell me some of the pitfalls. Tell me some of the challenges, or tell me some of the things that I'm going to have to um, overcome in my life by joining. And then what are the dangers, right? I mean, I know all the glamour. I like riding bikes or whatever, but give me something different that when I come and connect with you, that you're transparent and you let me know. You keep it real, they say. Keep it 100. Help me to understand that so that I understand the risk associated with joining you, if there is any risk at all, or if it's all just upside, you know.
There are risks, um, but the most of the time the risks are really on you.
Mm, talk about
And
it.
what I mean is, it's like I really don't have too many problems, but because I give people respect. Respect people. Listen to them, and even like let's say if you're in a position to where you're a president, you're responsible for your brothers. You know, you're looking out for them, and every move that you make, it should be to advance or move your organization in the right direction, in a positive direction. So you could have, and it's an example, but this is real. Let's say you're the president of something, or you're the president of a motorcycle club, and you're at home and you have an issue with your kids or your wife, and you're upset. And let's say that night you go out and you have to go to a function and you're not thinking properly, and you react.
Mm,
You know what I'm saying? You react in a negative way, and it causes some consequences. And consequences just don't happen for you. It happens for everybody else that's underneath you. And so it becomes a bigger issue. Then let's go a step further. Let's say if you're a club that's called, quote unquote, a nation, meaning that you're all over the country, that one incident at a bar or wherever, now it's impacted everybody in the state or across the country.
mm, mm,
So the risks are really on you. That's why you have to have a clear head, and you really have to check yourself. Should I be this person? Do I need to be this person that's up front? Can I make the sound decision for everybody? Because it's not just you. You got to think about other people. And when you're writing, that's for anybody because we're writing information. See, writing information represents my brother right beside me, my brother right in front of me, my brother right behind me.
mm,
Anything I do wrong impacts everybody. So in writing, there's so many just I don't want to say, there's so many different symbols or parallelisms, if that's,
mhm,
I think that's right. Yeah, there's so many different things that compare to life. That's why I said when I joined, it taught me so much more about life.
mm.
So yeah, there's a risk to it, but it's really on you. You respect everybody, you should be all right. But if you go out there and you get the big head and you don't want to listen and you get sidetracked and you start chasing the women and you pretty much seal your own fate. So
Wow, that's good. One of the things I found that has broken a lot of relationship
mhm.
is the lack of apprenticeship. I
Yeah,
know that I see, even in professions as well as a father-son relationship or a church and congregation relationship, is the absence of apprenticeship. And people, when you don't have the investment, when you don't invest in those that are your apprentice, when you don't train them, when you don't monitor, when you don't engage them,
hmm
what happens is many times they fall back to bad choices and bad behavior and all the things that they've been conditioned by their environment. And I say that to say with you on, talk to me about apprenticeship in terms of your program, how you help the new writers, the young writers, to invest in them so that they can walk according to the expectations, the culture,
yeah,
the bylaws, all those things, because sometimes we think it comes equipped. you don't just drift into it. Just like when I tell people now, it's like, man, I have no desire for church. I have no desire for God. I have no desire. You don't just drift into this. It's a relationship. It's a
Yeah.
training. It's a development. Talk to me about that in terms of the organization.
Well, if I was talking to like a newcomer, somebody interested in joining or prospecting, simple. What you put in is what you get out. So if you say you want to do this, and you get that call saying, "Hey, we're riding here,
Mm,
we're riding there," and it's, "Oh, I can't," or that's on you.
mm,
What you put in is what you get out. So whatever you're expecting to get out of this, you have to put that much in, if not more.
wow.
And you have to understand that. And this is what I had to learn: expectations. Just because I respect you and I give you all the utmost respect doesn't mean I'm going to get that back. And that was something that was really hard for me to learn. So my advice to like the newcomers is treat everybody with respect, but understand you might not get that back.
Mm,
And you have to learn how to, don't catch your attitude, just understand what it is and continue to move forward. Be patient and just see things for what they are. Because then you'll say, "Oh, this person owes me." No, never said that, you know? And it's sad, but hopefully my show can help that situation, you know?
right.
But that's what happens. So for the newcomers, I would say what you put in is what you get out. If you cheated, it's like riding a motorcycle. You have to respect that motorcycle. The minute you stop respecting it, it's going to remind you. It's going to throw you off.
Mm,
It's simple. It's just like that.
man, that's good. Now you know you then pricked my heart with the word. What you put in is what you get out.
Yeah.
Because one of the words that comes with me is commitment.
Yeah.
What does that mean to you?
Commitment. Commitment, man, is going to the point to where even when everybody else is quitting, you still got to stick with it.
Mm,
You know, and people say, "Oh, you're doing too much." It's like, no, this is what I said I was going to do. This is what I said I was going to be. So, yeah, it's raining outside, but guess what? I'm on my bike.
mm,
I'm doing exactly what I said I am. And then people say, "You have nothing to prove." I'm like, "But this is who I am. If this is who I am and this is who I'm going to be, why wouldn't I ride my motorcycle? If I say I'm a biker, you know?" So then, it's commitment, going above and beyond, sticking to it,
mm.
sticking to the plan.
Wow,
So,
that's beautiful.
yeah.
Because, with that commitment, and you're hitting hard on it, is out of commitment is birth being intentional. Talk to me about being intentional. Because,
Man, you're on something now. You're on something. My father, that's his thing for this year, is being intentional.
mm,
And that's also where me just gathering up the courage to start the podcast and the YouTube channel came from, being intentional. You know, I work a regular job right now, 9 to 5, or a regular 40-hour job. But there's no reason why my passion shouldn't be something that I can do full time. So I'm intentionally going down this path to start this channel, change the environment, and this is what I do: travel the world, travel the country, and because there's bikers all over the country, and I'd love to talk to them.
mm.
So I would never run out of content, you know?
I believe that. I
Yeah,
definitely believe that. Well, man, I can tell, man, you're very affable. You're easy to approach. I mean, your spirit is very calm
yeah,
in your presentation, and I think that will allow men or women to lower their guard. We're so guarded about everything
yeah,
now in relationships because of fear of being broken or fear of being hurt, and many times we've been conditioned. And so, to break that cycle, one of the things is, of course, we have to be transparent and put the work in. We got to put the work in and prepare and so forth. But I think, as you doing what you're doing, man, it's just a powerful thing, man. And I heard one of those brothers say it's very needed. I didn't know that it was needed. But,
yeah.
from that standpoint of being that is needed and you're intentional, where do you see it going? I mean, where do you see your program going, and what's going to be the effects or impact?
I see it going to where it begins to, it first, accomplishes the first goal, to bridge the gap between the younger and the older generations, to bring them together. Because, like I said, this is the one place where you have black men that come together consistently. So once we bridge that gap, we're unstoppable. And I mean this because you think about all the bikers do a ton of community service and charity. That's just the tip of the iceberg. So imagine all of us coming together to do different movements. We can go any direction we need to go, as long as, for me, as long as it's empowering and moving in that positive direction. So where I see it going is first bridging that gap, and then for me personally, being able to travel all over the country to do this, and different events. You know, we have annuals. People say, "Oh, y'all partying." That's not really what's happening. What's happening is, you know how every year you have a birthday? Well, these clubs, because it's hard work to stay together. You've got different personalities. You've got life that just happens in general. People butt heads. We've got to find a way to stay united. So every year you have an annual, which is a club's birthday. So if you have a lot of clubs, then there's always going to be something to do. So it's hard work, but I see it being able to where I'm able to go across the country and just bring everybody together. It's as simple as that.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
beautiful. You know, the word says, without a vision, the people perish. And you have laid a vision that is powerful. And it's amazing if you keep that vision on the forefront, it will bring and elevate you to the same vision that was drawn from the well inside of you, and that gave you this vision, that gave you this purpose, that gave you the alignment, all as a reflection of God's glory on the inside of you. And man, I tell you, you've talked about character and integrity, and we talked about attitude, we talked about commitment, we talked about being intentional. We talk about the things that are the ingredients to success. It's the ingredients to being an overcomer. It's the ingredients that God would call his standard. It's a standard that raises us up. And man, I tell you, it is awesome. Last words of encouragement, last words that you would have for those who are wanting to even join a club, or those who need just inspiration about life. What words do you have?
Simple. Be yourself. You know, you don't have to pretend. You don't have to make yourself like hard. Be you. If you be yourself, trust me, gotta make room. Like, there will be room for you too. You don't have to be somebody else. And that's what I'm learning now. That's exactly what I'm learning now, to be myself. So my words of encouragement, be yourself. There's nothing wrong with you. Just be yourself. And I promise you, if you start being intentional about whatever you're trying to do and stay true to it, it'll happen.
Wow. Stay focused. Wow. Awesome.